Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I have a very special guest today, Kit Vinson. I'm sure any of you in franchising know Kit and have seen his smiling face at various conferences. So Kit is the founder at FranMan. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Kit. Thanks for making time for me.
Are you kidding me? I would, a team of wild horses couldn't have stopped me from being here today.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting. Our conversations, no matter where we are, is always absolutely. I learn something every single time. I end up laughing my butt off,
Oh, good.
and we leave there so inspired. So I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. It's funny.
So,
I want to make a quick comment. It's the name of the podcast is The Franchise Woman, right? And so I got a call one day from an angry lady, and she was angry. I just want to know why it's called Fran Man instead of Fran Woman.
oh
And I
my
said, ma'am,
goodness.
we don't produce womanuals, we produce manuals.
It's short for manuals.
Right. It's so very funny. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's hilarious. Isn't it funny how we can be sensitive about the weirdest things?
Mhm.
So, well, you're our token man today. We interview men.
I know. I feel unique.
You're special, Kit. You're
Thank you.
you're special.
I'm happy.
Yeah. So you've been doing manuals, operational manuals, etc., for the world of franchising for quite a while. Can you tell us a little bit about what FranMan does?
Sure, I can tell you. We started the company back in 2005, and my brother, who was a franchise attorney, was my partner. And I ended up I called him one day and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm trying to find somebody to produce a manual, an operating manual for one of my clients." And I had worked for startups, and so I had done all that. And I said, "Why don't you do that yourself?" And he goes, "I don't have the bandwidth. I've got too many clients." And he told me, I said, "Well, what are they charging these days?" And he told me, and I nearly fell out of my chair. It's like, what? You can't find anyone to do it for that? And so I said, let's make the company. So together we made the company back in 2005. So we spent about 6 weeks kind of working on outlines and kind of fleshing out some of that content that's common to all manuals like OSHA and federal labor law and weird stuff like that. And we waited for him to have another client that needed one, and he did. And luckily for me, because I was working at the time, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is about an hour and a half drive from Dallas. And so he wanted to interview me first because we told him, we said, "Well, this is a brand new company, but if you want to do it, we'll give you a steep discount." He goes, "Well, come up here and talk to me." I took a day off of work. I went up there and did it, and he said yes. And we used that money to buy the computer and the printer and get the website done and do all this stuff. And we just started the company on bootstraps from there. And it wasn't, gosh, two a week. We got two more clients in another week. And then the
Wow.
next week we got our next client. And so it just kind of grew, right. I quit my job and did that full time. So we're working on our 19th year, I guess, if my math is right, of producing. So we thrive in a very narrow niche in the market, and that is we produce franchise operating manuals. And you have to understand how difficult that is, because when you look at Coca-Cola, their potential clients are in the billions, right?
Mhm.
Well, for us, there are how many franchisees? I mean, franchisors in Canada, the United States,
4,000 maybe?
4,000. So we
Yeah.
have a total market of around 4,000 people. And so what we decided to do was we're going to own that segment. And I think we do. I just can't imagine anybody's doing the volume of manuals that we are. Any of the other consulting, they do good work, but because we're specialists, and I think that our work is superior, and we can, so we've been knocking it out of the park. We don't specialize in any one industry. We've done basement waterproofment, indoor skydiving, recreational vehicle timeshare, every pizza place, and everything you can think of. And we don't specialize in any one size of company either. So we're equally comfortable working for the multinationals, like we did 7-Eleven
Yeah.
and Outback Steakhouse and things like that, all the way down to the mom and pop. We actually prefer working in the smaller area because those projects get done faster. So that's what we do, is we produce world-class custom franchise operating manuals. That's one side of our business. And the other side of our business is a web-based hosting platform for taking your manual. But that's not a production. This side over here is not production. It is distribution and management. How are we going to distribute the manual to our franchisees? And then how are we going to manage it, which means how are we going to keep it up to date? So all that's built into that online platform. So I kind of backed into franchising like everybody else did. And I've been having a great time ever since.
Yeah, you really have. I always love the idea of specializing and being the best within a very narrow niche. Zorkel does a similar thing in terms of only doing franchising. It makes you the best. It makes you the best in that particular area when you don't spread yourself too thin, and you could get where you really, really understand this particular space. And I love this idea too, Kit, that you have this online manual, because then you can kind of make changes on the fly, right? I mean, if something changes for that franchisor, instantly that can be
Right.
shifted, right?
That's a great comment. It's Bob Gappa, right?
Oh, yes.
And so he's one of my mentors and just a fantastic guy and a friend of mine. And this was the recession of 2008, 9, and 10, that big recession. Our phones had dried up completely. I didn't even know I had a phone anymore. I just, oh, that's my phone. I didn't know that's what it was. And we couldn't, no one was calling us. We couldn't get anyone to pick up the phone. We were doing mailers and nobody was responding to them. And it was just a mess. And so I called Bob and I said, Bob, what are you doing? Is your phone ringing? He goes, no, it's not. I said, what are you doing? How do you do this? He says, Kit, I've lived through a lot of these. And what I've done every single time is I have taken out a blank sheet of paper and I've kind of redefined my company so that I can come out of that recession much stronger. And so I said, okay, cool, I can do that. And 3 days later, I'm sitting in front of my computer with a blank sheet of paper and I got nothing on it. It's like, dang it, this is harder than I thought it was. And so I was messing around on Wikipedia and I just thought, this is cool, because I was on the Coca-Cola site. I could actually add something to the Wikipedia site. And if they accepted it, it would go to Wikipedia. And it was like, ding dong, there it is. We need to take these manuals. And because we kept getting the same complaints from our prospective clients, so we call us up and go, yeah, we need a manual done. Nobody's touched our manual in 10 years. Nobody wants to touch it. And it ends up being written by Bobby in the mailroom, and he doesn't know anything about manual. Yeah, no, I'm going to give you an example too. This was a multinational company. Okay, so I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a multinational company. I'm on the site visit and I'm looking at their legacy content. That's what they already had done. And I'm looking and I'm reading one of the paragraphs, and I had to point it out to everybody. I'm going, I've never seen this before. The paragraph starts with these exact words. It's like, when. It's like, when you do this, and that made it to the manual. It's like, what? No way. Get out of here. And so that's a great example of how, and I'm picking on poor Bobby. If there's anyone out there named Bobby that works in the mailroom, I'm not suggesting that you're not an intelligent person, but I'm suggesting that what happens is it gets pushed down to the bottom where the people are working on these manuals that really shouldn't be producing content for a franchise operation manual because of the ramifications of those words. Words have meaning, and they oftentimes will open up liability or require us to act on things. And anyway, they need to be written by a company that specializes in that. And so this online manual, the idea is to remove all that burden from the shoulders of the franchisor, because reality is this: you're not an expert in operating manuals. We are. You're an expert in what you do, and you should have all of your time to focus on what you do, growing your business, adding new material or packages or whatever it is that you do, but not working on your manual. You don't need to be doing that. That's what we do, and we do it better than anybody else. And so now, after a client's been with us for 5 years, now they've got 5 years worth of updates being produced by a company that specializes in producing operating manuals. How great is that? And so, it's a great package, and we really love it.
So I was thinking some time back, a few years ago, you and I were at a similar conference. It seems like you told me that you were looking at an old operational manual from a franchisor, when you were flipping through it, that it actually had a different company's name within it, almost like it was some kind of template or whatever it was,
Yeah.
and whoever did the editing didn't take the other company's name. Is that a
That
memory I have?
that happens more than you would like for it to happen. And I feel sorry for the clients because they've paid good money for this
Good
product.
money.
And then they come to us and they say, this is not well done. Can you redo it? And I'm sorry, but I have to charge you. I know you've already paid for one, but I'm going to have to charge you again. It's really sad. And I'm sorry about that, but we'll get manuals, and this will be, if it were a dog walking company, you would get content in there about the oven and about the cleaning the grease and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow. And I get how that happens because there's some content, if we produce content, we can use that content again, right? If I produce a piece on how to use a 3-compartment sink in a kitchen, well, we might use that again, and that's our intellectual property, and I want to feel free to use it. And that company probably did too, and that's okay. But they didn't do a very good job. We have 5 writers and a proofreader, and we use every single one of them, and not on every project, but we'll use those proofreaders, and those things still slip by, but not like that. Not like that. Things that slip by might be a comma splice and stuff like that, but not where you've got blatantly, okay, that's just embarrassing to the person that wrote it too. But yes, that does happen.
Oh yeah, especially if I'm running I'm running a auto repair business and I got things in there about how to do dishes, or cook
Right.
a prepare menu or whatever it is. It's like something is a little bit of a disconnect
Yeah.
on that
Now
area.
we do have a manual template package that's for the do-it-yourselfers, and that I will leave content in there like that for them with a note saying, "Hey, I left this in here because I know you don't have anything to do with that, but it might make you think of something else in your business that you haven't thought of yet." And so I leave them in there as kind of seeds for food for thought. But for our customized manuals, boy howdy, we're very careful about that.
Yeah. Wow, that is so cool that you have this do-it-yourselfer piece. Kind of reminds me of, what is it, Legal Zoom or whatever, where you can pull up a certain contract and you can customize it to
Mhm.
whatever you want. This, of course, is much more comprehensive, what you're talking about. But that's another niche that you have.
Well, it's a price point. So we have 3 different price points on the manual production packages, and one of them is a full service. On the other end of the spectrum is a template, and then on the middle we've got one called not quite full service, which is where we kind of share, which is where we kind of share the load on the work. So we reduce some of the services so we could reduce the price a little bit. But that template is a fantastic package because we customize it, we brand it, we put all their terminology all throughout it. And when they get it, it looks like, hey, this thing's done. But when they start reading it, it's like, okay, I have to customize this. So they have to go through and customize it. But it's all done. We include a video. So I'll make a video like this where I'm actually going through their template, showing them how to do it, how to add chapters and all the mistakes. So,
Oh,
most people don't know how to use Word to the degree that we do. We're not the world's leading authority on Microsoft Word, but we're elbow deep in it all day, every day. And so there are lots of tips and tricks that I know about Microsoft Word that most people don't. Our team does, and I share them those things in that video so that our goal in the manual template is not to drop them out in the middle of the desert and say, hey, there's the finish line, good luck. Our goal is to walk across that line with them. So we give them 3 hours of tech support. So if they copy and paste stuff in there and it messes up, we know how to fix it fast. It's like, hey, don't spend 2 hours messing around with that. Send it over to us. We'll fix it. You got time. We put a 3-hour cap on it because some people take advantage of that. So we need to cap it. But for the most part, we don't really look at that clock. But it's that kind of service that when you can create a product or a service and you add all those bells and whistles to it, it really add value. It's not just a bell or a whistle just for looking at, but it actually is valuable to the client. It's, even though you're more expensive, that people are still going to purchase it because they get it. People want to pay for value if you can show it to them, right?
yeah. I want to talk about something that I'm always both giggling about and impressed about.
Oh,
And that is the Play-Doh. When you
mm.
go out on a site visit, I want to be a little fly on the wall, but my understanding is it's crazy interactive. There you go. Tell us about, lift it up a little bit. I want to see the whole.
Oh, well, I was going to talk about.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so tell
So
us about the
we
play.
have a first place. It's the FranMan Play-Doh sculpting contest. So I'll tell you about that. When we started years ago, we started, and I wish I had a video recording of my first site visit, because it was like the pilot episode of a sitcom. It was horrible. It was just me stumbling around doing this, and it was just a mess. So over the years, they were whippings for everybody, and you could just see them just poking pins in their eyes. It's like, God, this is killing me, even though it's their business and it's their baby. And when you go
Mhm.
into the level of detail that we have to go through for 3 days long, and you add to that the typical personality. You tell me, what is the typical personality profile of a founder?
Oh my gosh, they're big picture oriented, they're strategic, they're visionaries, minutia, detail absolutely shuts them down. They like being up here, not into those
Yes, thank you.
tiny little pieces. I know as an entrepreneur myself, I would go nuts. I would go
Right.
absolutely nuts. I go nuts when somebody wants to change a sequence in HubSpot. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I'm overwhelmed.
So it's the same thing. So, ADD would sprinkle in some H in there somewhere, and put a
Yeah.
couple of H's in there, and you've got guys that can't sit in a room for 3 days
Mm-mm.
and 3 hours, much less 3 days, right? And so I was out with Bob Gappa. He had a company called Management 2000, and
Yep.
we were doing a client in common, and I was there, and he took out a bag of of Hershey's miniatures. And he
Ooh.
opened it up and he dropped it on, and it just spread across the table. And everybody was just like, boom, boom, just pounding these things. It's like, ooh, I need to do that. So the next site visit, I brought a bag of miniatures. Everybody loved it. The next one, I brought some gum. Next one, I brought some gum in a slinky. Next one, I brought some Play-Doh and some Hot Wheel cars. After that, I started piling up stuff to see what worked. And nobody was touching the Play-Doh for like 2 or 3 site visits. Nobody touched it. And so I took out from my pocket, I had a packet of gum, and I took out a piece of gum, and I said, okay, guys, while we're working, I want to see Play-Doh sculptures from everybody. And whoever does the coolest Play-Doh sculpture, I'm going to give you this piece of gum. And I took the gum and I put it up on the windowsill. And immediately everybody went whoosh. She grabbed a thing of Play-Doh. So just that competition alone got everyone into the Play-Doh. Just the piece of gum is all it took. People are competitive, right? And they wanted to compete. They wanted to do something with their hands also.
Mhm.
Um, as you know, our brains can process information so much faster than we can actually get information to it. And so as you're sitting in there and you're talking about this stuff, you can just see people just reeling over here as they're talking about something mundane as their hand washing procedures or whatever it is. And so I said, okay, I need something in here that's going to utilize the rest of that capacity so that they can sit here and not go crazy. And so I said, pack of gum is not good enough. So we graduated to barrel of monkeys and then things like that. And I said, well, I want to have trophies made up. So I went to my place where I get my shirts done. And I said, if I bring you Play-Doh cans, can you make a new sticker that looks like Play-Doh and has, FranMan on it and the full FranMan sticker? And so I have first place and second place. And then on the third day of the site visit, I make a video. I'll take pictures of all of them, and then I'll make this great video, and then we'll award the trophies on day 3. So that's kind of the fun. I tell people we put the fun back in funeral as it relates to site visits. And that's one of the ways that we do. We've got 80s music trivia games, and so we've got country and western music trivia games. We've got logo identification games, and I bring prizes for all that stuff. And just a way to break up that day that's really monotonous. People
Well,
love
and
it.
from a behavioral scientist perspective, a lot of things are going on neurologically at that point. It's kind of like knitting and doing something. You put your brain into almost an alpha state, which can be a very creative state for someone to be in.
Knitting.
Adding the competition component to it, now we get not only creativity, but you get challenge. And the brain is fed by those two pieces of food. Creativity and challenge is what keeps the brain active and alive and engaged. So you're doing both by keeping the hands active, adding a level of competition. You're doing a service to the brain to keep functioning. Never mind, it keeps them focused, right?
Right.
At the same time, and they leave that 3 days having had fun
Yep.
during that time and solving problems and creating whatever processes they need to create. So I think you stumbled upon something that works and creates a beautiful memory. And so much
Yeah.
of business today is about the experience, in my opinion.
That's what I want. That's key. That's the key word right there. And what I tell the clients is because Gary does site visits too, but he has a different style. And Gary has been with me since 2006. He now owns part of the company, and he's been doing all of this for forever. And so I said, Gary, you want to do site visits? Years ago, he goes, yeah, I think I would like to do one. And I used to try to force him into my mold, saying, hey, we're here. The site visit is an experience. It's it's this, that, and the other. And it just wasn't him, right? He's just
Yeah.
like, it's not me. And so I jumped off of that a long time ago. And I said, hey, you know what? I don't want you to be like me. We're going to offer two different experiences. One experience is going to be mine, and the other is going to be yours, which is very direct to the point. Let's get the information and let's get out so you can get on with your life. But the clients that pick me to do the site visits, they want that team building experience, because it is a team building experience. They want that fun aspect of it. They're bored all and work hard all the time. They want to play, and it's fun. You know what? We were doing Service Master. We
Mhm.
did the Service Master. We wrote 6 manuals for them at one time, and we had to come back for a second site visit to do the other 3. We did 3 on one and 3 on the next. When we came back to the second one, I had all of the table all set up and everything, the Play-Doh and the snacks and the Slinkies and the Hot Wheel cars, and everything was all spread out on the table. Somebody walks past down the hallway, walks past the room, stops, and goes, "Hey, FranMan's here." It's like, yeah. It worked. So we created that experience, and that's kind of what I'm looking to do.
Yeah. And
We now start that experience a lot earlier. So now what I do is I take all the stuff and I put it in a box and I put FranMan stickers all over it. And then I ship it out to them like a week early. And I say, okay, don't open it.
yeah, yeah.
But they all do. And they go, oh my gosh, we couldn't wait for you to get here so we can play with all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. And you're right. It does create a sense of team at the same time. We're solving these problems and coming up with these solutions and processes together, and we're fully engaged. We're having a blast doing that. And I'm keeping my hands busy at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm not kidding you when I say almost every, but not every, but almost every one of the clients says, we're going to implement this in our meetings from now on, because this is really great stuff. And I'm not the behavioral scientist. I just stumbled on it. And so even a blind hog can find an acorn every once in a
There
while.
you go. It works. It works. I really love what you do,
Thank you.
and your reputation is impeccable in the industry. And you come with just an incredible attitude. Never mind, you got this unbelievable sense of humor, and I
Thank
think
you.
it's even beyond sense of humor. What you have is wit. You come back really quick, no matter what the conversation is.
Uh,
You have
that's
this
very
quick
sweet.
wit. The other thing, Kit, over the years that I've noticed is you build relationships, and you're not just a good rapport builder and funny and playful and all of those things. You build really meaningful relationships where if you're in a town, you can stop in and see a friend in the franchise space or whatever.
I
I
think
think that,
so. I think I do too. And I've got people that are in my phone, and we talk regularly, that have been clients of ours, and from the very beginning, it's like, yeah, I like that. So I appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you.
yeah, and you're a wonderful model of that. You've done the same with with me. I want to talk a little bit about this relationship and the importance of it, both as vendors and suppliers, but more importantly, franchisors and franchisees. What do you see in your interactions with franchisees and how they're relating with their, with franchisors and franchisees?
So the most of our work is done, almost all of our work is done with the franchisors, but we talk about the franchisees a lot on the site visits because
Right.
we're writing a document or a book that's to be given to the franchisees.
Mhm.
So we do a lot of there's a lot of conversation around both of those players, and and it's interesting that you mentioned relationship, because one of the things that I've picked up on is that not everybody knows how to nurture a relationship.
Mhm.
And as we're talking about franchisor to franchisee, there are people that are really good at that. And there are other people that it's not that they're not capable of it, they just don't know how. And so
Mhm.
now it's not just about one franchisee. If everybody was a clone, if all the franchisees were clones of one another, then you could learn how to manage that
Mhm.
one relationship and you could just repeat it over time. But something really stuck out to me, and you and I had talked about this earlier, and that was I was, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I got on to the Gary Chapman series of books. And the first one that I read was the Five Love Languages. And then I have a teenager, so I immediately read the Five Love Languages for Teenagers. And then the next book I read was by the same author. And it's called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so I thought this is going to be great. And then as I was reading it, it was just like right in the middle, a light bulb went off. And it says, oh my gosh, this is what every franchisor needs to read. And because franchisees aren't the same, and how they want to be appreciated in the workplace is not the same. And everybody knows that you've got to have that relationship. That relationship is core to the business relationship, right? So, and an example, I've got someone on my team. If I were to have a big um, awards banquet, and I were to bring them up on stage and give this person an award, they may not even come up on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here I am thinking, oh, I'm going to show them how much I appreciate them, and I'm going to bring them up on stage and give them an award. And what I didn't know is that person may have gone to the bathroom to diarrhea and vomit 5 minutes before because they're so nervous. And this is such a miserable experience. And if they could do anything to get out of it, they would. And here I am thinking I'm doing something great. I'm actually
Yeah.
doing harm. And so all that, it just my brain exploded, and I said, hey, this is a big deal. So you start at the top, right? And you say, okay, what are these love languages? This is acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and physical touch. Well, almost all of those translate into the workplace except for the physical touch, and it does too. You just have to modify it a little bit. But that's one of the things I noticed with franchisors and franchisees is that they don't all have that ability to nurture a relationship. And I'm going to kind of go off on a little tangent here, but I talk about this when we're on site visits. I said, you're looking for a person, a franchisee. And if you look at the population of the planet of people, how many of those people want to work for themselves versus work for somebody else? It's a very small percentage. It's a whatever that percentage is. It's a very small. It's not 80%. It's more like 20% want to be their own boss, right? Other people say, I don't want that responsibility. I want my paychecks. So
Right.
of those people, how many of those want to be a franchisee? It's almost like an entrepreneur light, right? It's like, yeah, I want to be my own boss, but I don't want to have to come up with the ideas and go through the risk. That's an entrepreneur light. That's a franchisee, right? How
Mhm.
many of those people in that small group actually would rather be a franchisee as opposed to a franchisor? Let's say you take that group and you chop it down. Now, how many of those people are interested in your concept? much smaller. It gets even smaller and smaller. How many of those people are good at sales? How many of those people are good at accounting? How many of those people are good at HR? All the things that you have to be good at in order to be successful in a business. And the point I'm trying to make to them is anything you can take off that plate makes your pool of applicants much bigger. But same idea applies when we're talking about franchisors. It's like, okay, here's somebody that comes up with a great way. Boudreaux comes up with a great way to make the best Boudreaux's burger. And everybody's lined up to eat Boudreaux's burgers. And he may have the best burger in town. But what skills does he have at managing franchisees,
Exactly.
business owners? It's finding that person that has everything, that unicorn out there. That's hard. And we shouldn't expect people to have all that stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. I know at Zorkel, as you know, our focus is on ideal franchisee, and that is exactly the process a franchisor needs to go through, is to determine who that ideal franchisee that possesses those attributes and skills, etc., so they would be a good fit. But even beyond that, like you said, is the relationship between that franchisor and franchisee that inspires performance, that inspires them to be part of a collective and to protect that brand equity. You know, as you were telling a story a minute ago, I was thinking about an experience I had where I spent 19 years providing services to a company, and not once did I get an accolade, an appreciation, an award, to come up to the, front of an event, and yet their entire business was completely dependent on my tool, my sciences. Right. And I used to say, oh, I don't need appreciation. I don't need recognition. I'm doing this because I love what I do and I'm making a difference and I can contribute. And it kept me going. It kept me going for a period of time, even though I didn't feel appreciated. And then that relationship ended, and I started to work with another company in the similar vertical. And every year since, I've won Vendor of the Year, Innovation of the Year, blah, blah, blah award. And I'm up on the platform getting appreciation, and I'm getting emails, and I'm getting cards, and I'm getting text messages. And the first time I got it, I'm on stage and I broke down and I cried. I had no idea that my love language was in part words of affirmation, words of appreciation. Sure. I had spent all these years feeling disrespected, unappreciated, unacknowledged, but I kept going, and a single award brought up just the opposite of what the gentleman was that you were talking about that's in the bathroom throwing up. It right. brought up tears and humility and a desire to do even more. So each of us has our own love language, and if we understand it, we can definitely provide it for our franchisees and our employees, as you pointed out.
Yeah. And so what I love about what you do is, and for anybody who's watching this that doesn't know what she does, she'll take a company and she'll put them all through the system and determine, get a numeric value for the corporate culture. So we're going to get a profile of every person in the company, in the management. We're going to come up with what is your corporate culture. Corporate culture is so powerful, and people don't understand it. I give a whole presentation on that on my site visit, and how important it is, and how that goes into the manual. But so you come up and do this, and then you take all of the existing, if there are existing franchisees, and then you take their profile, and then you ask the franchisor, hey, categorize them top third, middle third, bottom third. And now I'm going to be able to tell you, anybody that new that comes in, how they fit in the corporate culture, where they fall on the list here, how they interact with businesses in your life cycle. It's so cool. And if you could come up with a way to add that one last little piece,
yeah,
it's like, how does that franchisee want to be appreciated? Man
Yeah.
alive, that would be so cool. I just think you're in the right position to do that. And then that's element one. Element two is having people that actually listen to it and act on it. And that's hard. It's not, and even just having the desire to act on it is one thing, and understanding how to act on it is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm, I'm all about, um, for me, acts of service is the way that I
Mm-hmm.
give love, that I show love. I don't necessarily, that's not my gig on receiving, but that's what I do. My wife doesn't, that's not her love language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to learn how to do some of these other ones. And it could be, if we're talking about quality time, yeah. Am I good at sitting down and really listening, proactively listening or actively listening and going and being present and taking myself out of the office earlier and doing those things? Boy, that took practice. I
Yeah.
didn't come out of the gates knowing how to do that. So you got two things you need to touch on there. One is identifying that, and then teaching them how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then not doing it over and over again the same time, so that it looks like it's just a box that you're checking.
It's so true. And the idea of knowing our franchisees or even our employees, appreciation language, love language, whatever we might want to call it today,
Mhm.
the quality time. Are we taking him to lunch, right? Or we are taking him out to dinner? Are we having one-to-one conversations with them if that's their love language? Access services, I actually think franchisors do a pretty good job of that. That's kind of the role that they have, is to
Mhm.
provide certain services to make sure the franchisee has what they need, to build their businesses. But if that is not the way that franchisee or employee feels appreciated or loved, it could be falling on deaf ears, may not even noticing what the
Right,
franchisor is doing. And then we got this conversation of, what have you done for me lately? When we've done all these things, we're showing you that we love you and appreciate you as franchisees through these acts of services. This new software we just rolled out, right? This new marketing campaign we
right,
rolled out. But if that's not the way they feel appreciated, then we really haven't made a dent for that
exactly. So it's
individual.
words of affirmation are typically what they do with their annual conferences and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that's almost all of it, because they can't do. So you talk about um, physical touch. Well, in the workplace, that's more like, fist pumps and high fives and hey, great job. And that's, or pat someone on the back or whatever. You have to be careful, but you can't even do that as a franchisor. You're not even in the same city, in the same state. So that's almost impossible to do. Acts of service is, as it relates to in the business relationship, is more about being a support to them. It's like, hey, I know you've got 10 things on your plate. I'm going to put an 11th thing on your plate. Give me those two little things. I'll do them for you because I know you're busy. That's an act of service, right? That's me doing something, physically doing something to help them out. Um, but for franchisors, it's all about the gifts, right? It's all about, here's an
Yeah.
award, and here's a word of affirmation where we bring you up on stage. But how do you do the quality time thing? And there are some companies that do it in their annual conferences, and I don't, again, I don't work for Catherine Monson, but I'm going to use her as an example. She's really good at, and I don't know, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say I'm making people feel cared for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certain it's genuine, but I don't know, but I'm, because I can't know. But when I went into her office one time to talk to her, I was trying to earn their business, and I was going in and I was talking about something else too. But this was the second meeting, and this was, I don't know how many weeks apart was the first meeting from the second. And she walks in, as she's walking, she's doing everything on this iPad and busy as hell. And then, boy, she puts everything down and throws it all away and just sits down, looks at me and says, "How's your son?" because I had talked about my son the last time I was there. He was sick, and all the questions she asked, and how present she is. Boy, she's really, really good at that.
Mhm.
And there are not a lot of people who are that good. So, but other people can learn. That's the thing. That's the cool thing about all this stuff. Just because you're not good at it doesn't mean you can't learn. And so,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
an
know how we got
excellent
there.
point. That's an excellent point that these are skills that we can learn, and we can learn what love language or appreciation language someone has and adapt our strategy in such a way that we can offer it. I mean, the way Catherine Munson does it, it's very clear. It's about the quality time. It's about being an incredible listener. It's about asking questions. It's about that eye contact. She is fully present and aware, even though she's got a million things running
Right.
Propel Brands on her plate. She's still all about that relationship. So I love the idea that it's learnable. And I love the idea of bringing this appreciation language, just love language, into that franchisor franchisee relationship.
Here's something I'm going to add to that. In addition to the fact that it's learnable, you're not in it all by yourself. It's much different with me when I am interacting with my wife and I'm trying to practice this. I'm the only one on stage. And if I don't do it right, the ball's going to fumble, to use a sports analogy. But in a franchise environment, in the franchise concept, you've got a team of people that
Mhm.
are doing that are part of that group doing that, whether it be whatever it is, this expressing a love language to, or a language of appreciation to a franchisee. So if one person is not good at it, you've got 4 or 5 other people who might be excellent at it. And so together as a team, there's no excuse why you couldn't. I mean, the idea of having everyone on the same team that's only good at one love language, the probability of that's going to be pretty low, or the language of appreciation is going to be pretty low. So there's, not only can you learn it, you're not in it on your own. You've got a team of people that can help mold that whole process.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Austin Meek, who's with Neighborly Brands, and his
Okay.
entire role for many, many years was just that, is to build those relationships and to discover within the broker community specifically, but also with franchisees, what that individual needed to feel appreciated and cared for, and he was able to do an excellent job. I know he's moved to another role now, but he was another individual like Catherine Munson that I was in awe of, and how beautifully that he does that.
Well, here's another person that a lot of people listening are going to know probably, and that is Paul Rocky.
Yes, Paul Rocchio, absolutely good example.
And he's been doing that for years, but he's really good at, when he talks to you, he makes you feel like you're the only one in the room. And that's impressive. And people who can do that. And so I don't know if he follows any of this stuff that we've been talking about, but he's really good at that. But anyway, it is learnable, and there are some people that come back naturally, but I'm certain that there are things I know that's learnable because I don't know how to do all these things when I started reading the book, and now I do. And so it's,
You
like I said,
know,
blind hog will find an acorn every once in a while.
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, Kit, we could talk about this forever. Um, but I want to make sure folks know how to get hold of you, and learn more about FranMan, and if they have needs for manuals that they can reach out to you. How would they do that?
Oh, that's fantastic. So we've got a couple of ways. One is you can go to our website at franman.net. So it's FranMan stands for franchise manual. So it's FRANMAN. And then after that, it's nothing but net, baby. And then you can call us on our phone, which is 214-736-3939. Extension 101 will get right into my office. And then my email address is kit.vinson@franman.net. So, boy, we're lots of ways. We've got a Facebook page. We've got Twitter. You can reach out to us anyway. And My cell phone number, 214-207-2035. That's my personal cell phone number. So I'm happy to give that out too. So we love to talk to people, love to, we'll have conversations with people on the phone for 30 minutes. They go, yeah, we're not ready to go yet, but we sure do appreciate you teaching us all that stuff. So this is my favorite topic and I love talking about it. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And thank you for carving out time for me today, Kit. Incredible conversation as always with you. So I'm really glad that you could free. I know you're getting ready to go on more trips and you just got back from one last night. And
Well,
so
it's a true honor to be on here. So when you invited me on, I just felt all warm inside. So thank you so much for allowing me to share stuff with you.
thank you. And
All
to
right.
those of you listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged, we'll see you next week. Make sure to share this interview with Kit Vinson with your sphere of influence. It's going to definitely inspire others. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.